Okay. All right, I'm calling to order the Warrenville Public Library District Committee, the whole meeting of the Board of Trustees. It's Wednesday, September 21st at 6:01 p.m. And we're going to do a roll call. Trustee Ritzika.
Present.
Trustee Lazan. Here. Trustee Pika.
Present.
Trustee Warren.
Present.
Trustee Stoll.
Present.
Trustee DeRocher is here. Also here is John Keister from John Keister and Associates.
Welcome.
And Director Whitmer. And Jill Richardson is not present. Is Heather taking any minutes?
I am. Yep.
Thank you, Heather. All right. First we're going to do is approve the agenda. And I don't think there's
Yeah, there's nothing.
nothing on here, so there's nothing to change, really.
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda.
I second.
Motion was made by Trustee Stoll and seconded by Trustee Ritzika. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we are happy to welcome. Oh, any public comments? Sorry,
No public comments.
thank you. So we're happy to welcome John Keister here.
Thanks for having me.
We made that decision at our special board meeting a few weeks ago, and John had wanted to have a chance to have a discussion with us as a group. So we're very happy to have that discussion. And I'm just going to let you kind of take it away.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. This is really exciting to do this 17 years after the last time. So I haven't changed anything except gray hair and things, of course. But I had what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about what my afternoon was like visiting with staff, and then go over briefly a little bit of next steps and what to expect, and then to have a discussion with you because I have some questions and things. First of all, you have the most awesome library staff I have ever met. I am not used to this. Quite often when I request a visit with library staff, and similar to today where I was in the study room and people could come in as they had time. I've gone a whole day where no one even comes in to talk to me because no one cares. And I lost track of the people that talked to me this afternoon. It was one after another. The conversations were extremely constructive, very positive. And I was, normally what I'm trying to do, the purpose of that is not only just to learn about the culture of the library, but I'm learning about what are some of the challenges the next director is going to face. That I did not accomplish, because the only thing I could come up with is that it's going to be a challenge to succeed your current director.
Definitely.
Basically what I heard was, if I had to kind of sum it up, and I'm just looking at my rough notes here, you have an unusually strong team environment here. It's a close-knit group. So I think the library has assembled a pretty good working organization. So the key is someone to come in and not mess that up, for one thing. I was really impressed with what I'll call strong mutual trust that the people I had for each other. And these were all individual conversations, so it wasn't like a group or anything. But I was just pretty much blown away. I call it no drama. Probably the key thing that I rarely ever hear is how much people thought the board is very supportive of them. Very positive comments about you as a board. That is not common, particularly in the time that we live in right now. So that was good. So I'd like to talk to you about some challenges to overcome, but I can't come up with anything. Except I know my job's going to be really tough.
Well, we are aware of some things ourselves, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good. Usually it's a little easier if you have a lot of problems, but you don't. What I did pick up on was looking a little bit about, and I talked to people quite a bit about this. What would attract someone to this library? Why would they want to come here? So to start that, just part of it, I thought what I might do is go over a little bit of expectations and kind of what the market is like now for library directors. When we zoomed, I probably had touched on some of this. It is an extremely challenging time right now to hire a public library director, the right public library director. Part of that is due, I think, to COVID fatigue. A lot of it is due, I believe, to the challenges that library leaders are facing now, as is library staff, from a lot of things happening in our culture right now. The book banning and things like that. And then the other component of this is the attractiveness of opportunities outside the library profession. And I know Barbara and I were talking a little bit about this earlier. Until this year, I had never seen this happen, but a week does not go by that I don't have at least 1 or 2 directors contact me to let me know they're resigning, not from another library, but they're going to the private sector. That is a really significant move right now. And much of it, again, is, well, I was telling her, I know one director in Indiana that I've known for years that I met at a conference presentation that I made. She called me Friday and she's like, I just wanted to let you know I'm resigning. And I said, why? And she says, well, first I've had death threats from members of the public. Okay. And she said, half my board was just replaced by the county with some, I would say, not ideal trustees, put it that way, who have now taken over. They will be buying all the materials for the library. Everything has to go through the board and all this.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I says, what are you going to do? She says, I'm going to the private sector. So I keep hearing this, and it's really disturbing that this is happening. So that's the challenge. The good thing is, I think this is a very attractive opportunity. One, and the best word I could put for this was, there's really nice people here. You got a nice board, you have really nice people on staff. And, everybody has their own, internal things that happen, I'm a business of 2, and trust me, my wife and I don't always agree. I usually lose, but, I do understand that. But you have, I think the workplace here is head and shoulders above most libraries, at least in my experience, is really head and shoulders above. Because I asked everyone I talked to, why did you come here to work? And it was pretty consistent with the answers I got. So I think that the attractiveness is going to be there. The challenge is trying to encourage, well, good people to stay in the profession and look at the opportunity. Sounds kind of strange. So that's kind of where I'm at. One member of your team, when I asked, why come to Warrenville, everybody gave me some good reasons. I liked her. She summed it up and said, we're a small but mighty library. And I like that. So I'm going to use that.
Very true.
Yeah, so that's all, really, really good news. What you should expect next, which we're well underway. In fact, my wife was texting me this afternoon, asking me questions. So I kept peppering your staff with things, is the website, which is going to have information on the community, the library, the opportunity and things. We're very well along on that. So that's good. So I would expect that to be finished shortly, very soon. And what I'll be doing, I'm going to send that to, I'll send it to Sandy so she can distribute it to whoever she might want to. And I want to send it to you so all the board members have it. If you'll look it over, just to make sure that we've captured kind of the flavor and the feel of the library, the community. And we do that before we publicize it to the world. Okay, so we'll have you look at that. And then we're basically off and running. I take a lot of the information I've learned today and what I'll be learning from you. That's how I put together, who am I looking for this role?
Okay, someone that loves the community.
Yeah,
Like, for instance, Sandy joined everything. She went to the Historical Society team. She was really part of the community.
yeah,
At almost every organization she was at, the park district meetings and the grand opening, and she just did everything with the community. which is very important.
Well, it's interesting, if you go back in time, like if you go back 17 years, the role of the director is very different than it was now. It wasn't so much being the face of the library, it was
Right.
more like running the library, keeping the lights on and things. But now it is, that's a big part of the director's job, is to be the ambassador and face of the library. I personally think it's extremely important now, because of all the controversy that's going on. You know, you have to be visible. And I think communities are more comfortable if they know who the library director is, and not just some mysterious figure behind the curtain. So, yeah, I agree with you. That's
Mhm.
really key.
That's a very important thing.
Well, and to Cindy's point, it's also been really helpful that Sandy has kept abreast of different developments going on with the city, even though we're not under the umbrella of the city. And we're, you know, an independent library district. Still, much that happens here can affect us. And so she's gone to pertinent board meetings and things like that and been able to come back and report. So, and even given us a heads up when we need to be in residence, so to speak, at the meetings.
And
So-
with all the new building
Yeah.
developments, she's been on top of that.
So
And
that
the
is going to
one
be
next
an
to
important
us, yes.
aspect to just be part of it.
And kind of following along with that, the other part of that is about keeping you informed is no surprises. Because I know, having been a trustee myself, you don't want to be at Jewel or something and hear about something negative at the library, and you're like, why didn't I know this? So, yeah, always surprises.
Yeah, that's been a really good, Sandy's communication style has been excellent. I certainly hope that we'll continue that with her.
Yeah, a good ambassador, that's what. we
Yep.
need.
Especially good in letting us know when there's any kind of an incident, so that we're apprised, and if anybody has to ask us anything, we know what's been going on.
Exactly.
So,
Well, let me just ask you and have a little bit of a discussion now on this. You know, I talked earlier about how I didn't really uncover any unusual challenges here, you know, that you normally might encounter at a public library. But what do you see is from the board perspective, it's a challenge or challenges that the next director is going to face here at Warrenville?
To be up to the standard we're expecting from Sandy.
yeah, for sure.
I mean, we're so used to her running everything so excellent,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be hard
not
for
to
a
make
person to
errors.
fill those shoes.
I would say one of the things that I've noticed is just, and this has really been since the last couple of years, how politically charged sometimes the library is, whether it's been issues with banned books, whether it's been inclusivity. Whether it's just been, you know, the whole idea is sometimes the reaction to people wearing masks when it was required everywhere. Is somebody that's able to be a good diplomat, you know, being able to, you know, when things get heated, I guess. And be able,
Well, and thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not just reacting from the hip.
Keep calm.
Yeah. I would say that still, I mean, and this is part of, this comes from our strategic plan. We have made inroads into meeting the needs of our Latino community. But we really need to keep, that's definitely something that's on the horizon.
Mhm.
It would be it's very important to this board and to the staff. And we are struggling. And so we need to find ways to meet that commitment.
Do you see in Warrenville, are the demographics changing? Is it becoming more diverse or?
It has been,
It
yes,
has been?
yes, very rapidly, in fact.
I would say it's pretty small increments.
Yeah.
But Johnson School is a pretty good, that's a school that's over on the
On
west side of
Continental.
town, and I would say that's a pretty good barometer, and the face of Johnson School has changed quite a bit. It's an elementary school,
Okay,
so much more diverse.
I think one of the things we're cognizant of is her skills when it comes to preparing and implementing the budget. And we have all become very used to that level of excellence. I think to me that's important because you do need to have somebody in the director position, who not only can construct a budget, the way Sandy does, but help us to make sure we're not overspending.
And know all the intergovernmental
Yeah.
policies.
Okay,
So I would be very, I wouldn't want somebody who says, oh yeah, I've done it before, but it's not my forte, because I
Yeah.
don't think that would be a good person for us.
well, it's probably helpful to have someone familiar with district statutes and library districts too.
It's a little different than being forced with money from the city, where we create our own.
Aside from abilities, I think a strong character. You know, someone who could come in and take charge. And know that they have to, maybe fill Sandy's shoes, but they're not bothered by that, and they will step up to the plate and be strong.
Wait, Jill had something.
I'm sorry.
We've talked a lot in this, in the trustees about staff retention and stuff, someone
I
who
was
really
thinking that, yeah.
understands the trends in staff and incentives and all of that is gonna be real, quite important.
It has been, that's something that we've been working on. It's partly budgetary and partly driven by employee pool candidates, employee candidate pools.
And changing, just the way people are changing when they look at work.
And we're still pretty much at the workplace place.
Warrenville winds up being caught between two large players here with Wheaton and Naperville. And I think that the sprawl, of both of them, makes us closer to the downtowns of either. Some closer than other outlying neighborhoods that they have. So I think that it'd be, and Warrenville seems to be sort of stable, but we've had good community leadership in terms of mayor and staff sticking around. We've had, how long was Vivian in?
Been long about 20 years.
And Dave's not too far behind that.
Oh, yeah, close to 20.
Yeah, so we've had some stable stuff there, and I think that the board for the city is pretty good too. So I would guess that what we need is some kind of community team player that can is politically savvy enough to be able to flow with the punches, because the current mayor is not really,
He doesn't bend.
well, he isn't going to continue on much further.
No, he probably not.
So he might not run again. And I don't know who might be in the wings that would like to take over.
Okay,
But if it's not someone like Vivian or Dave, then there's going to be some community upheaval. We think that we need a networker, because we get together pretty well with the rest of the park district and the other taxing districts and things like that that are helpful in the long run. I would think that there'd also need to be a team player in that kind of a community of leaders that work together between those local organizations. And I guess you could consider the VFW and a couple other the police boards and other things like that.
And another thing is, it does not have to be a woman. We can have a male director too.
yeah,
Correct. I mean, they will be interviewed also, right?
yeah,
Good.
We have applicants.
I think I'm a little uncomfortable that we keep talking about filling Sandy's shoes though, because we all know how incredible she is. But we've got to get that out of our heads. We can't expect. a
No, we
clone.
can't
don't
make
want a
all those
clone,
comparisons.
And we need,
well, you're
No, it's
stealing,
gonna be
you're stealing
different.
my next topic that I'm
Yeah.
gonna talk about. I mentioned this when I had talked to staff this afternoon. And typically what I see, this is any organization, not just libraries, if you have a leader that maybe you're not so disappointed that they're retiring or leaving or resigning, you know, you have cake and ice cream and goodbye. But if you have someone that you're really sad about and disappointed that the person's leaving, it makes it really difficult for the next person coming in.
Right.
And it's hard to do because we're all human. And again, I already talked to everybody this afternoon about this. But even because you're human beings like me. And even when you're interviewing candidates, you're instinctively going to try to compare them to Sandy. But you have to work on that. There will never be another Sandy.
No.
Sandy would tell you there's not gonna be another Sandy because you can't clone. So the next person who comes in here, it will probably be somebody entirely different. You know, could be young, older, male, female, we don't know what that's gonna be. But you want someone that's at least equally accomplished, but they're gonna have different approaches. The reason I mentioned this to the staff was what's really difficult for incoming library directors, if they're following on the heels of a well-liked person, if you will, is that even the staff is going to be comparing that person's decision-making and things to the prior
And I'm
person.
worried about maybe would a staff person leave, that can happen, where a staff member.
Oh, I talked about that with the two people I talked to about that, who brought up that very point.
Right,
And I said, well, that's actually my job to make sure you have the right candidates, and that's not gonna happen. Because you want to avoid hiring someone who's gonna, there's a couple things to avoid. You don't want someone who's disruptive, and the other one you really want to avoid is someone who comes in and starts making changes just to be making changes.
and there are people like,
Yeah, well, I avoid those people like the plague.
you know what, it's a power play.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at identifying those people, but to
There will
me,
always be people who just use that as an opportunity to make the next change.
and you actually,
It's not,
we'll talk about that in a second on longevity. What I think is good, and one of the things I look for in people, is, you know, because I always ask this question of candidates, how are you going to transition yourself into the role? Now, if you're an internal candidate, there's one way to do that. I don't know, maybe we'll have internal candidate, I don't know. If they're external, I want to know that they're going to basically keep quiet for about 6 months or so
Mhm.
and just listen and learn and get to know people, get the lay of the land. You want to avoid someone, and I'll help you with this when it comes time for interviewing. So you make sure you're identifying this. You don't want to hire someone who's just going to come in and say, change, I'm going to make my mark. That also goes kind of what you were bringing up. And that is, who's going to be your next director, their background, what are they going to be? I can't remember if I mentioned this during the Zoom or not, but the other situation to try to avoid is hiring an experienced library director who will have the very natural human tendency to come in and remake Warrenville in the mold of where they came from. Because that happens. Okay, and so that's something you have to avoid. For that reason, your next director may be an experienced library director, and this is a step up, or they may be a first-time director and they've been like a manager with substantial responsibility at a big library, something like that. So I don't know that yet, but that's what we're going to work on. In terms of longevity, I don't see whoever you hire having the same tenure as Sandy, because that just doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen in the private sector either. Because those days, that's a thing of the past now. Usually I always say if you can probably get 5 to 7 years, that's pretty good. I don't see you necessarily being a stepping stone library, but you could be. And boards are always kind of sad about that. But I always use the story, and I don't know if Sandy, did you know Pat Lazinski in Columbus? Have you ever heard of him in Columbus, Ohio?
I don't know.
Okay, I did, the first search I ever did was Warren Newport in Gurnee, Illinois. And that was a case where I was replacing a director named Pat Lazinski. And the board was extremely sad. They're about the same size as Warrenville at the time. And I said, well, he was going to Colorado. And they were all sad about this because they all liked him and stuff. And I says, well, you're giving him his start on a career. Well, he's now one of the most highly respected public library directors in the world. He's director of the Columbus, Ohio Public Library. He speaks internationally, and he got his start at Warren Newport. So the kind of turning around is something you can celebrate if that happens. That you help that person, and you know, that type of thing. So, but yeah, you won't, it's highly unlikely you get 16 or 17 years out of the next person.
So you have a hard job ahead of you.
I was telling people this afternoon, you know, I'm sweating bullets over this because, like I said, if you had a lot of problems and you had a real problem director, makes my job a little easier. This is tough, but I'm so excited to do it. So.
Before you move on, you talked about, I have 2 points to make, and one of
Sure.
them was how someone handles change.
Yeah,
That is very, especially with the way the world is, and that ties into my other point. I think the person has to know how to be, and I say this, but if you think about it, there's not enough patience, kindness, or empathy in the world. So they need to provide examples of how they deal with those kind of situations, whether it be our members or our staff. Because the world has become, and I have to say it, a kind of a cold place.
yes,
And as you've learned, Sandy does well with that, but Warrenville does a fairly decent job of that. And someone who is not able to exhibit those qualities would have a difficult time.
yeah, and then the next point I wanted to bring up and discuss with you, and get your permission for this, is kind of related to that, and that's culture. I'm a real big believer, you know, probably the person's gonna be local, they're gonna be in the Chicago area, that's a high likelihood. But it could be someone from outside the area, but they have to understand the Midwestern culture. You know, you have Minnesota nice, I don't know what we call it here in Illinois. But when I've gone to other parts of the country and have done work, people have actually noticed that in me. And I'm like, well, it's kind of a Midwest thing, you know, which is nice to people. So that kind of goes along. And so I want to keep this search very regional. That's okay with you. It'll be national just by default because people will hear about it. But I want to try to focus regionally. I think that's best.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
I guess the one other thing I was thinking about is one of the things that I see sometimes as a struggle with Warrenville in general is just that we don't necessarily have public transportation. It's not easy to get to the library unless you have a car. It, you know, especially say for kids. So sometimes trying to find ways to reach out to the community, which Sandy has been great at. We're in a partnership with a laundromat, you know, and we do story times at some of the parks. And so some of it is to still kind of get the word out that we're here. I mean, for so long, there was just trees. You couldn't see us from Butterfield. And so even just making us as visible as possible in the community, and, you know.
I think that goes along with the idea of being not only creative, but innovative,
Right.
and looking at the circumstance and what can they offer to make the situation a better one. It may not be bad now, but is this person going to bring some innovative and creative approaches to things that will work in our culture?
And I think the most important thing is to be able to work well with other people, with the staff and with the board, and just working well with other people. Good. And listen, and a good listener to their ideas.
Yeah, I feel an aspect that Sandy's really cultivated. I would say over the last decade, maybe 5 years, is in empowering, I guess, the staff
Mhm.
to use their own creativity. And I would really want a director that was aimed that way as well. To give this, I mean, that's what really makes a team, is when people feel they're invested in the outcome or in that particular aspect. And I feel it among the staff. I feel that they're really creative and they come up with some great ideas, great programming ideas. So I'm not expecting a new director to come in and be like, our programming is all going to focus on blah, blah, blah. I would really want a director that would
Embrace
Also-
our program.
also, you know, really empower or encourage the staff.
And I think that goes with Cindy's comment about, it's not easy to be a good listener.
Yeah.
They have to be able to listen, so they know what the staff values and what the staff can contribute before they start being a change agent for the sake of just changing things.
The staff empowerment's a really big deal, and which reminded me of a story, and I forgot who told me that this afternoon, that there was I don't remember the details of the incident, but Sandy was not in the library, and this person had to make a decision which could have had a less than ideal outcome if it had gone wrong. And as I understand the story, when Sandy had returned to the library, the person explained to her what had happened. And Sandy, from this person, I'm paraphrasing, was, Sandy saying, I wasn't at the library. This was your decision to make, and I agree with it. And that had a big, big impact on the staff. So, yeah, that's a big deal.
Well, and too, that during the times of COVID and, all the restrictions, when there was expressed concern about, staff and member exposure, the staff came up with a couple of ideas to make sure, and you didn't have, Sandy is never taking credit. If there's something that the staff has done, she'd make sure to give them credit for it. And, as a cheerleader for them as much as they've been a cheerleader for her and, what she's done.
I think everyone would agree, we don't need a micromanagement. We need somebody who can give the staff their wings and be there to prop them up.
Well, that's part of leadership.
Yeah.
It's identifying a good leader. So
It
And
is-
also Sandy's been an excellent leader for this board.
Yeah,
And
and a lot
that's
of passion too.
we're very appreciative of it. Of course, we're very open to it, as not all boards are. That's kind of the culture of this board right now. And so we would want someone to also help lead us.
that's going to be another challenge for you, because whoever comes in, you're so used to, what your current director is doing. Your next person, you're gonna be, there'll be a period of learning and things, because the next person, you're gonna have to get to know each other and learn, but it'll be different.
And it's gonna be difficult for the staff because they're gonna be working for a new person.
Yeah.
And when you work for a new person, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
In any form of industry or any job. When you
Like the
get
start
into.
of
It's the unknown.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's unknown.
And yet, we're in a good location. We're near a major metropolitan center, good transportation, good highway system. Right here, we've got good local colleges that are known. There's all kinds of amenities. Oh, yes, and we have water, which is not
Oh, yes.
necessarily which is not necessarily what they've got on the West Coast. And some people might be looking to move
This is the oil of the future
over here.
It's
Water, water will be the determinant.
And no fires, water, no fires.
The other advantage you have in Warrenville, which, even though I want to focus regionally, someone could be, another part of the state or, somewhere in the Midwest. A big factor now in hiring library leaders is spousal or partner employment, because you come as a team, and the other person needs to find work also. The suburban area is so loaded with, there's a job for everybody, no matter what you do, and that's a real asset. Other areas don't have that advantage.
What is your experience with someone who may have relocated, let's say, to the West Coast, but they are originally from this area and then coming back? Have you had any searches like that? Have they been successful?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I just wanted.
Yeah, probably my best, it just, there's several, but one that pops into my mind was Freeport, Illinois. Which is also about the same time I did your original search. And, yeah, that worked out really well, because that person was from the Chicago area, had moved to Oregon, was a library director, and came back and was attracted to Freeport due to the Victorian architecture and everything else going on in the community. Yeah. I don't know why I just thought of that. That's a long
Well,
time
there's-
ago. But
What I was thinking in terms of when you say it will become nationwide, there may be.
yeah, I want a link, you gotta have had some experience of some sort connection
I
here.
wouldn't
It
want
doesn't
somebody from Hawaii who's never lived outside of Honolulu.
That's it.
To be transported here because they're in for a very rude awakening.
But people in Florida have to move someplace
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's going away.
Well, then we'll have a bunch of Latinos.
California was called.
Well,
teach
yeah,
them.
that goes into the ocean. man. It's all not-
Yeah, it's really, it's so, I don't think libraries are any different than any other field right now. It's so chaos right now with everything, whether it's, the job, low unemployment, the political situation, the everything. It's a struggle, I think, to hire anybody for anything right now, anyway.
The task competitive makes me glad I'm in Hawaii. Because I'm kind of just going,
I just love this though, so
oh, well, you can see your private guy, so.
I just challenge. I have a question for you. We were talking about everything's wonderful and all that, but what areas of the library do you see a need for change or improvement? You touched a little bit.
Are
on-
you talking about programming? Or are you?
Could be programs, building, anything.
I don't know, we did this huge build out when Heather.
That was what,
Stop it.
2008, 2010?
2017.
2017?
Yeah.
Are you talking about this? right
Yeah,
now?
the most
Okay.
recent thing.
Organization.
So 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So like, in terms of, the building itself,
I guess we've always talked about wanting to finish the downstairs.
yes, but we don't really have a good reason.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's
And
always
the
more
bathrooms
programming
they
that we
can
can
open
do.
For the concert people to get changed, so that's good.
Yeah.
I think one thing we need to, and I remember this, I don't know whether it was when we were redesigning that. Being aware, the library, what a library is for in a community is changing, from what it was.
Rapidly.
And I
Even
think we
the last
need-
time we did our
Yeah.
strategic plan, yeah.
That's when we talked about it, and we need to hit someone who is able to not only lead the library staff, but the board in those changes. That would be something I see as a challenge for us, not only for the community, but the staffing as well. They need to be able to respond to the different needs that the community is looking at for the library.
You're doing something here, and again, I don't know all the details of it, that I heard this afternoon that I was glad to hear, I picked up on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're looking to actually hire a human resource person? Those things I know as recruiting tools, that alone is extremely
That's my
attractive to
point.
people,
Yeah.
very attractive. Because one, it's the right direction to go in, so you have a professional person on board. But
Well,
library director.
frankly, if we had done it 3 years ago, we might not be having a retiring.
But that's,
Spent an awful lot of her time. doing
that, I made a note of that, because that's a
Strong.
forward thinking, very.
Well, I noticed that was one thing in going to some of the library conferences or trustee days or whatever. Talking to some of those, it was interesting because they at least had somebody else other than director doing human resource functions, which is one thing that we didn't have here. And so we didn't realize how much time it's taking.
Well, it's
Yeah.
time, and someone told me, I may be completely incorrect on this, but I thought I had heard that in Illinois. Insurance companies are going or requiring it now, like libraries. You need to have some professional HR function, whether internal or outsourced, to get liability coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of heard inklings of
I
that.
haven't heard that yet, but I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah,
And I will say, going back 17 years, one of the questions that I asked at the time I was interviewing, I asked Jackie. Now, the board has told me that you handle all of the HR functions, right? I'm not going to have to do any of that. And then I said, yes, I'll take this job. And then I started asking questions, and Jackie's like, what are you talking about?
But even since.
She didn't
then,
fully
it's
understand
changed.
what
Yeah.
that involved, and that's where it's just becoming.
yeah.
And it's
Also-
changed so
Sure,
much.
and I thank the
Yes,
board
that-
for
Much
backing
more
up that
involved than it
choice
was
of hires,
17 years ago.
that bill.
There's a lot of legality.
I'm sure with
behind
human
keeping yourself
resources,
out of legal
And it's a
action.
lot for the director to know all of that.
Just
It's
a lot of
easier if there's somebody.
new
who's
things and
professional.
changes has been
Yeah.
overwhelming, I think.
Yeah, I would,
or can be
the
overwhelmed.
other quality, I mean, and we kind of touched on it different ways, it's definitely a good motivator because some of the time I feel like, I don't know if it's a generational thing or whether it's, but some of the time I've sensed that. And I see this in my job where people just feel, hey, I showed up today, and
The morale is,
yeah,
Everybody gets a
morale,
trophy.
right, and some of the time because I feel like we've had a couple of issues with that where it's like. They should be telling, the dog what the tail should be wagging the dog and say, wait a minute, that's not the way it works. So.
Every employer in the world, in this
It's
country
dealing
right
with that
now,
right now.
Yeah.
because everybody's exhausted.
yeah, someone that keeps the morale up, the librarian.
Because I remember what it was like before we hired Sandy, and morale was really a problem.
Yes, it was. There was a lot of changes.
And I don't know how you measure this, but you have to have somebody who can take care of themselves too, so that they can continue to be a leader. And you will be able to see, have something outside of the library that makes them tick.
Oh, reminds me, that's one of the other positives that came out this afternoon, that I noticed, now that you said that, was the work culture here, there's flexibility. It's not super rigid, in my words here, that if someone has an issue, there's a child care issue, an elder care issue, or something like that, that the library leadership has worked with that. So that's been good,
That's pretty much out of necessity
yeah.
I don't think.
to keep them.
Keep good retention, trying to keep them.
Okay.
Still, that's a selling point for the library.
Yes, it is. You bet. So I'll be talking to people about, so. The only other area, until I turn over to you, if there's anything else you'd like to talk about, is the real basic. Have you thought about a salary range for the position?
Well, we were really hoping you would guide us.
Well,
there.
I can work
Because we
without that.
don't have, we've really
Yeah.
had one person in the position for a long time and we don't have any sense of
Okay,
what's happening
Here-
out there.
this is what I would recommend. Okay, this is always my suggestion. Is not to have a voted on formal range for the position because that locks you in. And let's just say, I'm making this up. Let's say you had a range of $85,000 to $95,000 base compensation. Well, my understanding of human resource law, and I'm not an expert in that. If someone ends up not applying because they're like making 96 and, but you end up hiring someone that's over your range, that can come back and bite you because someone could say, oh, I would have applied. Right, yeah. So for that reason, plus it gives you a lot more flexibility on that. So what I like boards to do that really helps me is if I get a sense from the board of a salary range, not voted on formal, but just like, this is kind of what we're thinking. To come up with that number, I can work with Sandy because she has access to data I don't have. And every other state in the country, you can go to the state library website. It has all the director salaries except Illinois.
Oh,
And the only place to get it is Laconia. I'm not a member of Laconia, so I don't have access to the data. You do. And they did their recent,
Yeah, but it is public
no,
record.
you'd have to call every library.
There are some organizations out there that try to collect the data, but
Oh, there's like Indeed and
Figuring out
stuff,
whether
ignore
that's-
all that. That's garbage. But would you be,
I
in- yeah, okay.
Just like a benchmark, in a library this size, in a community this size.
How about Sandy and I will work on that and get back with you. How about that?
That would be
There
great.
you go.
Okay, all right.
Which I guess the other question and some of the other thing we've been struggling with and amending different policies. What other things or what, can make this attractive? I mean, I think it's maybe standard, 5 weeks vacation, but I don't know if there was.
No, I'm gonna be real straight with you. You're already attractive. I don't know how else to say that. I don't encounter this with other searches I do. I just don't. So I don't think,
Go get them then, John.
yeah. I'm
Bring us a
anxious. Oh my
list,
God, are you
man.
kidding?
I'm ready for the list.
The number, that's what I want to talk about that in a second. The number one thing that is always of interest to any good candidate is the library board, because everyone is extremely concerned about library boards. Always has been, even more so now.
With good reason.
Yeah, with good
Yeah.
reason. Well, you're fine with that. So,
I watched some of these nightmares that have blown up on television. I'm like, oh my God, thank goodness we're not.
you know, you don't have,
Because we're the boss, literally.
you don't have. Like one search I did where the staff had a Facebook page against the board.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
That was in Michigan. I mean, I dealt with some really horrendous situations, so this is like. This is like just.
You know, there are some people that just like to fight.
Yeah,
They doesn't cause problems and none of us want to do that, I don't think.
I not long
We're pretty
ago,
cohesive.
I visited a library in Michigan. Like I did today, and everybody hates everybody, board members and staff, the staff was unionizing. I finally asked staff, I says, why do you even work here if you all hate your jobs? You know, and then to come here. Whoever comes here as your director is gonna be lucky.
Well,
Seriously.
we think so.
So
So-
today was your first day gathering information, or have you been working?
No, we've been gathering stuff, so.
So in your mind, and you don't have to answer this, if you have a lot of content, do a lot of networking, are you starting to?
No,
form kind of a list?
I haven't done that yet because I wanted to come here today because it would be presumptuous for me to assume things. And what I was trying to ascertain was one was challenges. And the other one was, what's the culture here? What makes this library different than Wheaton or somewhere else? What makes it unique? And I think I've got a pretty good handle on that.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, so now what I've got in mind is, okay, I'm formulating, who am I looking for?
Well, and what, I actually have a couple of names in the back of my mind of former employees here that I might like to see an application from
Okay,
as part of a candidate pool.
sure,
At what point,
shoot me an email,
okay, how do we do that? Okay.
send me an email.
I think you
I,
would be.
I learned a lot of good people just from networking and things, so that's pretty
Okay.
common.
And John, I think I know at least one that you're thinking, John may know that person based on some of his previous
Yeah,
experience.
Good. So
Barbara, are there former employees that are interested in the job?
I have absolutely no idea. We haven't even posted yet.
Oh.
yeah,
So,
Unless, you know.
no idea.
someone-
I just came up with a couple names where I'm like, oh, that would be interesting.
okay. The other question I have for you is in regard to benefits and things. Let's see, my own personal opinion is whoever the director is should live near the library. You might have an emergency, you don't want somebody who's 2 hours away, you know? Plus, if you're gonna be involved in community events and things, you can't be commuting from downtown Chicago to Warrenville. But if you identify and hire the right person, it is traditional to do some sort of relocation benefit, which is pretty small. The reason why this is good, first of all, librarians know how to stretch a dollar, and no one expects this. So it's like a very goodwill gesture. And you are hiring your CEO. That's who your director is, the CEO of your library. So what I always like to have boards consider, and it's certainly not something we need to decide tonight. If you had a person that was going to relocate, could you offer like maybe $3,000 or $5,000 that they can use toward moving expenses and things? Because nobody expects that. It goes a long way to establishing some goodwill. That would be it, you know, not buying a house or anything like that.
Yeah, but I know it's frustrating when DuPage County in and of itself is, you know, one of the more expensive places to move to, so.
Yeah,
There's something, I mean, I realize you're not gonna buy them a house.
yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, just be, considering that. That'll be good. And that's it for me. Do you have anything else you'd like to know or discuss?
So will you be in touch? I know you said the website will be brought out to us at some point in the next couple of weeks.
Well, sooner than that, but.
Is it your plan to give us an update at the next board meeting or will it?
Yeah, anytime. I'm not gonna be coming to your board meetings, because then I'd have to charge you travel and things, and I don't want to do that. But I'm always available if you wanted me to Zoom, or at any time. I'm very accessible, so yeah, that's fine. What I'd like to
How you
do,
report
What
your
was the
progress.
timeline? You wanted someone by December?
Yeah, that's what our goal is.
Okay.
That's our goal.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That's our goal.
What I'd like to do, because it makes my life a little easier in things, if I could have one point of contact, and I
That-
guess it would
It'll
be
be
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, instead of like emailing all of you, if I have a question, I'll just be sending it to Barbara. That just makes it easier.
When do you anticipate that we would be doing interviews with candidates?
Boy, that's a really good question, and I can't predict it, but I have an idea.
Probably by November.
No. I'm gonna say, I'd like to say, oh yeah, around Thanksgiving maybe, something like that, if all goes well. I don't know, because I'm dealing with people, so you can't predict. But that's what I would say. But I am working on that goal in December. At least you have identified and hired the person. They may not start until after New Year's, but
Well, if whoever needs to start, they have to get their current, excuse me, employer.
Right.
Money in. We won't have the benefit of what we did,
Right.
with Sandy, but there's still that.
well, on that topic, I did want to have a proposal for you here. It is traditional. Well, first of all, in all the years that we work with global companies, it's kind of more of a serial or linear interview process. That when I was doing a search and I identified a really good person, that company or organization would at least initiate contact with the person, because candidates have a short shelf life. Heaven knows library director candidates have a real short shelf life right now. I'd like to go back to that process and not necessarily do this, which is common in the academic education library world, what I call a batch process, to you wait until you have a whole slate of candidates to get started with interviews. I don't want to do that because you're going to lose people. So if during my course of my work, I've identified, qualified, recruited, done everything, and I have a really good person I want you to talk to, it doesn't mean you have to interview them and make a hiring decision. But I at least want that person to have some sort of contact with the board, so they have a comfort feeling that not everything is just me, that I can tell them, okay, maybe they'll have like an informal conversation with you. But then we could say, we probably won't do formal interviews for 4 weeks or something like that. That helps a lot.
And that would give that candidates an opportunity to say, I don't have 4 weeks to give you,
Well,
probably.
I don't, that probably, I don't know if that would happen, but it could, but I want to do it more because also the process goes quicker that way too.
Because I remember last time we had 2 Saturdays and we interviewed 3 candidates.
Is that what we did?
Yeah, I'm
I
the
don't
only
even
one,
remember.
I'm the only one on the board that was here at that point, so, yeah, we had 2 Saturdays and we brought in 3 candidates each time.
Okay.
So, and,
Is your preliminary, I'm sorry, preliminary via Zoom or have the candidate in person?
It could be Zoom for like a first one is fine. I mean, for a fall, because for a more in-depth formal interview, there's 2 parts to that. Obviously, want them to meet the board, but I want the candidate to spend time with the staff.
That's what I.
That is extremely important. First of all, candidates are going to want that, obviously, and these are, for the most part, are going to be recruited people. I'm pulling them from other libraries. I'm a headhunter. Okay, so they're going to want that. The other thing too is I think it's helpful for you to get a sense from your staff, making it clear to them they are not making the decision. They don't have a vote on who to hire, but you appreciate their insights. So I'll work, probably with Sandy on different ways of doing that process. It's also helpful if the candidate has interacted with staff before they meet you, because you're going to have a better interview, because they're going to know the library. You'll
Are
have-
you gonna work with us on interview questions?
Yes, I will be doing that too.
And so that'll be a Zoom process?
Oh, yeah, that'll be a meeting that we'll have, I might come for that one. That's where we're gonna talk about, if it's a slate of candidates, I'll talk about candidates. But yeah, I have some documentation I could send you, because I'll have like, some example questions.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Just to kind of stimulate your thinking, so it's not just the standard,
where do you see yourself in 5 years?
yeah, or, what book are you reading now, or something like that, that doesn't tell you anything. So I like open-ended questions that don't have a yes or no concrete
So
answer.
that's a discussion rather than.
It's a discussion, that's it. You want a discussion, you're gonna learn more.
I know that last time too, the way it was approached was usually the interim director that we had, because our other director resigned. Took them around and then brought them into the interview, and then, you know, while we were interviewing that person, the next one was lined up and.
Yeah, if it goes that way, we could do that. I actually see, because I honestly believe
But it's
your
like-
candidates are gonna be local. I
Right.
have a strong suspicion of that. And so what we could even do logistically, if it makes it easier, a candidate could even come in a day, not even of the board interview, just come
Oh,
in
yeah.
and do a staff thing and, you know, not necessarily have to be the board that day. Because you don't have you're not like you're flying in someone or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, I guess it's just scheduling, because I know obviously all of us are people and have stuff going on in our lives, and, you know, just in terms of.
Yeah,
Being available and having a forum sometimes is a challenge.
and that's also why I'm gonna try to minimize my meetings with you, whether they're in person or Zoom. I've been in your shoes, I know that, so.
Based on what you've learned so far today in this discussion, how many candidates do you feel you logically will be able to present to us?
Oh, it could be one if it's the right person, or it could be 5 or 6. You know,
I just curious what you thought.
yeah.
Should we have asked you any questions that we didn't ask tonight?
By the way, that's an ideal interview question. Did you plan this?
No.
That's exactly the type of question you would ask a candidate during an interview. It's really good.
Write that down.
That-
You'll be asking that question from now on.
That actually, no, I'm not kidding. That's a good question.
John's writing it down if you're.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's on my list.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, that's really good. I can't think of anything. I'll probably think of something on the way home, but you know how that goes. But no, I think we're good to go.
All right.
We're gonna be working, Kathy's gonna be working with us on photos and things like that. Everyone today was just absolutely super wonderful, so. Oh, now you're in the room, so I can say that. See?
Super one. All right,
Super Paul.
we do need to adjourn this meeting. Does anyone have any final?
I would just like to say that your efforts and what you spoke with us about have given me confidence in your ability to help us. So thank you.
What's going off now? It's firing.
Oh,
The hot light's on my head now.
No, I'm serious.
we have
Thank you.
confidence in you. That's why we chose.
We liked your proactive approach rather than kind of static and hoping the right candidate came to you or came to us.
It doesn't work.
Yeah,
And you're back and ways for things to happen. You're very well asked.
All right, could I have a motion, please?
I move that we adjourn the committee on a whole meeting.
Second.
So motion was made by trustee Pika, seconded by trustee Lizan, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, we are adjourned.
okay, so it's
Thank you very much.
6:59.
We can take a 2-minute break for any of you